Siege and Storm is book 2 of the Grisha trilogy, and in it, we're going to be moving beyond Ravka's borders a little bit into some of the other countries of the world. We're going to meet some new characters, but almost all of the characters from book 1 will be back. All I can really tell you about the way the trilogy is going to go is that not everybody's going to make it out alive, that Alina is just in the first phase of her evolution in terms of her power. And I can promise you that the Darkling will be very back and very bad. The second story of the boarding house was in considerably worse shape than the public rooms below. The carpet was faded and threadbare, and the dim hallways stank of cabbage and tobacco. The doors to the private rooms were all closed, and not a sound came from behind them as we passed. The quiet was eerie, maybe when everyone was out for the day. The only light came from a single grimy window at the end of the hall. As Mal fumbled with the key, I looked down through the smudged glass to the carts and carriages rumbling by below. Across the street, a man stood beneath a balcony, peering up at the boarding house. He pulled at his collar and his sleeves, as if his clothes were new and didn't quite fit right. His eyes met mine through the window, then darted quickly away. I felt a sudden pang of fear. "Mal," I whispered, reaching out to lay a hand on his arm. But it was too late. The door flew open. "No!" I shouted and threw up my hands. Light burst through the hallway in a blinding cascade. Then rough hands seized me, yanking my arms behind my back. I was dragged inside the room, kicking and thrashing. "Easy now," said a cool voice from somewhere in the corner. "I'd hate to have to gut your friend so soon." Time seemed to slow. I saw the shabby, low-ceilinged room, the cracked wash basin sitting on the battered table, dust motes swirling in a slender beam of sunlight, the bright edge of the blade pressed to Mal's throat. The man holding him wore a familiar sneer. Ivan. There were others, men and women. All wore the fitted coats and breeches of Zemeni merchants and laborers, but I recognized some of their faces from my time with the Second Army. For a moment, everything in the room was silent and still. I could hear Mal's breathing, the shuffle of feet. I heard a man calling a hello down on the street. I couldn't seem to stop staring at the Darkling's hands, his long white fingers resting casually on the arms of the chair. I had the foolish thought that I'd never seen him in ordinary clothes. Then reality crashed in on me. This was how it ended? Without a fight? Without so much as a shot fired or a voice raised? A sob of pure rage and frustration tore free from my throat. "Take her pistol and search her for other weapons," the Darkling said softly. I felt the comforting weight of my firearm lifted from my hip, the dagger pulled from its sheath at my wrist. "I'm going to tell them to let you go," he said when they were done, "with the knowledge that if you so much as raise your hands, Ivan will slit the tracker open. Show me that you understand." I gave a single stiff nod. He raised a finger, and the men holding me let go. I stumbled forward and then stood frozen in the center of the room, my hands balled into fists. I could cut the Darkling in two with my power. I could crack this whole saints-forsaken building right down the middle, but not before Ivan opened Mal's throat. "How did you find us?" I rasped. "You leave a very expensive trail," he said, and lazily tossed something onto the table. It landed with a plink beside the wash basin. I recognized one of the golden pins Jenya had woven into my hair so many weeks ago. We'd used them to pay for passage across the true sea, the wagon to Kofton, our miserable, not quite tick-free beds. The Darkling rose, and a strange trepidation crackled through the room. It was as if every Grisha had taken a breath and was holding it, waiting. I could feel the fear coming off of them, and that sent a spike of alarm through me. The Darkling's underlings had always treated him with awe and respect, but this was something new. Even Ivan looked a little ill. The Darkling stepped into the light, and I saw a faint tracery of scars over his face. They'd been healed by a korporalnik, but they were still visible. So the Volker had left their mark. Good, I thought with petty satisfaction. It was small comfort, but at least he wasn't quite as perfect as he had been. He paused, studying me. "How are you finding life in hiding, Alina? You don't look well." "Neither do you," I said. It wasn't just the scars. He wore his weariness like an elegant cloak, but it was still there. Faint smudges showed beneath his eyes, and the hollows of his sharp cheekbones cut a little deeper. "A small price to pay," he said, his lips quirking in a half-smile. A chill snaked up my spine. For what? He reached out, and it took everything in me not to flinch backward, but all he did was take hold of one end of my scarf. He tugged gently, and the rough wool slipped free, gliding over my neck and fluttering to the ground. "Back to pretending to be less than you are, I see. The sham doesn't suit you." A twinge of unease passed through me. Hadn't I had a similar thought just minutes ago? "Thanks for your concern," I muttered. He let his fingers trail over the collar. It's mine as much as yours, Alina. I batted his hand away, and an anxious rustle rose from the Grisha. Then you shouldn't have put it around my neck, I snapped. What do you want? Of course I already knew. He wanted everything. Ravka, the world, the power of the fold. His answer didn't matter. I just needed to keep him talking. I'd known this moment might come, and I'd prepared for it. I wasn't going to let him take me again. I glanced at Mal, hoping he understood what I intended. I want to thank you, the Darkling said. Now that I hadn't expected. Thank me? For the gift you gave me. My eyes flicked to the scars on his pale cheek. No, he said with a small smile. Not these, but they do make a good reminder. Of what? I asked, curious despite myself. His gaze was gray flint. That all men can be made fools. No, Alina, the gift you've given me is so much greater. He turned away. I darted another glance at Mal. Unlike you, the Darkling said, I understand gratitude, and I wish to express it. He raised his hands. Darkness tumbled through the room. Now, I shouted. Mal drove his elbow into Ivan's side. At the same moment, I threw up my hands, and light blazed out, blinding the men around us. I focused my power, honing it to a scythe of pure light. I had only one goal. I wasn't going to leave the Darkling standing. I peered into the seething blackness, trying to find my target, but something was wrong. I'd seen the Darkling use his power countless times before. This was different. The shadows whirled and skittered around the circle of my light, spinning faster, a writhing cloud that clicked and whirred like a cloud of hungry insects. I pushed against them with my power, but they twisted and wriggled, drawing ever nearer. Mal was beside me. Somehow he'd gotten hold of Ivan's knife. Stay close, I said. Better to take my chances and open a hole in the floor than to just stand there doing nothing. I concentrated and felt the power of the cut vibrate through me. I raised my arm, and something stepped out of the darkness. It's a trick, I thought as the thing came toward us. It has to be some kind of illusion. It was a creature, wrought from shadow, its face blank and devoid of features. Its body seemed to tremble and blur, then form again, arms, legs, long hands ending in the dim suggestion of claws, a broad back crested by wings that roiled and shifted as they unfurled like a black stain. It was almost like a Volcra, but its shape was more human, and it did not fear the light. It did not fear me. It's a trick, my panic mind insisted. It isn't possible. It was a violation of everything I knew about Grisha power. We couldn't make matter. We couldn't create life. But the creature was coming toward us, and the Darkling's Grisha were cringing up against the walls in very real terror. This was what they had feared. I pushed down my horror and refocused my power. I swung my arm, bringing it down in a shining, unforgiving arc. The light sliced through the creature. For a moment, I thought it might just keep coming. Then it wavered, glowing like a cloud lit by lightning, and blew apart into nothing. I had time for the barest surge of relief before the Darkling lifted his hand, and another monster took its place, followed by another, and another. This is the gift you gave me, said the Darkling, the gift I earned on the fold. And that's it for now. If you want to read more, please check out Siege and Storm.